Going live. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. We're going live. I wanted the topic of this video to be why I stand with Kyrie, Irving, and I support Ice Cube's decision. I wanted to give my way in, my thoughts, my feedback. But first, as usual, before we jump into the topic, this video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to everyone. So please do his own homework and research into the matter being discussed. The information that is going to be presented is not to be construed as legal advice. Please seek a competent professional in the event you feel you need to do so. Please keep in mind everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. Dorsey's Resource is not liable for anyone's misuse of the information. The information being presented is also not medical, legal, tax, or financial advice. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, let's get into this. Welcome, guys. I want to thank everyone once again, as always, those who have stayed loyal, those subscribers who continue to follow me. I want to say down the road, you guys are going to be rewarded for staying loyal. When I'm in a better position down the road, I would definitely would like to bring you all better content. I'm working on different ideas and things, upgrading my software. That will come down the road, and I will be at liberty to disclose those things. What I'm going through now, kind of minor setbacks or roadblocks, not letting that stop me, but down the road, why I would like to bring you guys better quality content, and even if I have the ability to migrate some of you all over to other free web hosting platforms that don't censor, that are open to freedom of speech, by the way, because one thing I forget to discuss before we get into the topic as to the reason why I support Ice Cube's decision and I stand with Kyrie. I'm going to speak kind of cryptically, too. By the way, you guys understand, should know, we're seeing a pattern. It seems like after there's major controversy about something in the main headlines of the news, mighty funny we see in more recent years, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Apple, etc., ramp up the censorship or what you can't talk about and say we're just going to remove da 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 arbitrarily. Have you guys noticed the pattern there? I'm just saying. So that's why I'm going to try to do my level best. Hopefully, I can communicate the point across. But one of the things I have been forgetting to mention to you guys, it's related to the censorship. I was kind of losing my train of thought, but this ties in with one another. Is that I pretty much said that they've been clamping down hard on my other channel. By the way, not too long ago, a public service announcement. I did a video. I knew I wouldn't get as many people as I have over here. With the few people that do tune in, sometimes when I do go live, I have a tendency, as of lately, within the more recent years, to do more live videos than I do pre-recorded videos. But I may start doing pre-recorded videos again. It helps out, and the YouTube's algorithm thing. They've changed things. By the way, if you guys are wondering why my channel is not growing as fast as it used to, by the way, or why my videos are not getting the amount of views. I know some of you all have come to me in the past, a long time ago, and even in more recent times, that said you're not getting the notifications. Also, just on a side note, if you do like the content that I put out, just make sure if you click the notification bell when you subscribe to the channel, after you subscribe, there should be a notification bell. That way, whenever I do go live, and if you are logged into your YouTube account where you're subscribed to me on, some people have multiple accounts, then it should notify you if you go to your notifications, if you know how to do that, and click if you're using Android. I'm not sure if you're using Apple, but there should be like a notification box to tell you if you logged into your YouTube channel who's going live. And that way, when I put out new content, you guys will be some of the first to see it. Also, check my mainstream social media, I'm still on Facebook, by the way, Twitter. Whenever I upload new videos and more recent videos, I generally always immediately 90% of the time, if I get off work, once I get off in most cases, so I can still do it even when I'm at work, is share the latest video to my Facebook feed or my Twitter feed. So you guys say if you're up late or whatever, you guys can check. Also, if you follow me on those other web hosting platforms. Also, minds.com, by the way. I'm on parlor.com. Parlor, just check Dorsey's resource. Parlor was back up after the, what that happened earlier in the year, by the way, when Amazon had controlled their servers and just arbitrarily with the pressure of the mainstream media just pulled the plug. Well, they got their own servers now. So you shouldn't have to worry about that again. Even though I've heard through the grapevine that parlors monitor, they work with the who, but it is more so conservative leaning. But they didn't start off, they welcomed everybody. I want you to know, many of these platforms, no matter what your political stance is, they welcome you. Trust me on that, and you will see the benefit down the road, especially if you have a big following and you say something that rocks the boat. Because down the road, coming years from now, even if you are liberal or Democrat, certain things you may not have thought may be offensive, or certain things said, you can be censored too just as heavily and just kicked off in a heartbeat. Because what they plan on doing, the big tech giants, they had a secret meeting not too long ago, I was informed, in Iowa. By the way, some of the biggest tech people met to discuss how they could better control the population. This actually happened. This was reported on. I oftentimes check band.video, aka the backup channel freeworldnews.tv, censoredbyjack.com. When you type in those other URLs, sometimes if they try to crash that URL, you can, if you punch in the backup, it'll still take you to the web hosting video feed. And what I love, he shows, AJ shows all the documents. By the way, when I watch it, I love watching his video feeds more so than his radio syndication. Some people ask me, I think in some cities or certain places, he still may be syndicated on the radio or whatever. I remember years ago when a friend of mine put me up on him, by the way. And what I like about, just on a side note, before I'm going to get into the Kyrie and why I support Ice Cube, but on his site you'll see a lot of accurate reporting. I just want to let you guys know, uncensored, unfiltered. By the way, excellent videos, compilation videos, and he's not the only video web hosting platform that will show you the evidence. This is beyond the lies that fact check tries to come out and say. By the way, even locally, I noticed they're doing this thing where they're trying to say that like they're trying to claim that they are the authoritative source, that they're trying to convince you that the poison is safe. By the way, and maybe, with some people, we all have different, immune systems. It's pretty common knowledge. You don't have to be a medical practitioner. It's like some people are born with different allergies. You have people food allergies, people lactose intolerant, stuff like that. So can you imagine the amount of people that have taken the, what, by the way, that have had injuries and even deaths that mainstream is refusing. So this is why I stand truly wholeheartedly 100% with Kyrie out there. I want to let you know, appreciate you, all the actors and famous people. I meant to put in the title, by the way, even Nicki Minaj. This is where the real fight is at. We need the actors, we need the famous people. By the way, this is not clout chasing. This is real, because a lot of times, they put the narrative out there that a lot of times it's just easy to just sound cool for people, famous people that got a lot of money, to just go along with the sales pitch, by the way, and get paid. But Ice Cube, with the recent decision, actually turned down some big money. It's for a movie. They said $9 million, and there was this talk out there where people were trying to put down Kyrie Irving, and I want to say I did watch part of that Instagram video that he put out, but I didn't need to watch the whole thing to truly know and understand Kyrie. And I was just so surprised from all the vitriol that I saw that came out from some NBA analysts, and one NBA analyst in particular that was buck shucking, buck dancing, and the whole 9 yards, acting like he was Kyrie's daddy. And some of you all probably know who I'm talking about without saying his name. The guy cracks me up sometimes because that's like my getaway. By the way, I love sports, different types of sports out there. But I want to let you guys know, all the actors that are speaking out, these are authentic people, by the way. That lets me know that you guys are in touch with what's really going on. You guys are not going along with the propaganda, just the everyday easy talk just to sound cool. It's any easy for anybody to just sound cool, that has a lot of money, that's worried, that don't want to get, and I get it, you don't want to get your sponsors cut, this, that, and other, but you got a lot of people that got a lot of money already, but or act like they are activists and part of causes and not really care or give a care about the people. And I want to tell you, Kyrie is real. He turned down some serious money, and I heard recently, allegedly, that they're trying to, behind the scenes, cut maybe even more of the pay that he's getting, because they try to come out with a stance basically saying until he gets the poison, that we're not going to make accommodations. When you watch the Instagram feed, and he said he didn't know that, we didn't know that area was going to put out, restrictions like that, and he was promised that he was going to get a religious exemption. And I want to tell you, by law, I found out that statute, I looked up because I had a subscriber, and kudos to the subscriber who sent me an email that put me up on Peggy Hall. I didn't know about Peggy Hall, but I saw the video. I actually downloaded it for archive. I have a folder I've created to download all the evidence, by the way, and of course, the stuff they're trying to basically cover up, that the poison is causing when people get a significant number that have had complications, that's had injuries from that, by the way. But get to stay on topic, Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act, that deals with religious accommodations. I found out also is tied in with even your social security number at your job, by the way, disclosing that, which is tied in like with the Privacy Act of 1974. There's a connection between the two, but definitely between the social, disclosing your social security number, and I didn't know there's a connection. But what Kyrie's doing, Kyrie's is my hero, by the way, as well as others out there that are truly speaking out. I remember Nikki said something, and there's been others. I heard that the actor, the sister who played the sister of the guy in the movie Black Panthers, being alleged, they said that, I was reading an article that she said some things on set that sounded anti, what, and they're trying to make this us against them. If you decided to get that, at the same time, I'm not judging you in that regard. My cousin, this is a true story. My older cousin came from DC. He stayed with me back in late August. He came to Detroit. He told me earlier in the month, when my younger brother and my mom were visiting the DC area, he texted me one morning. I didn't know till early part of August, and said he needed a place to wanted a place to crash at. He was coming to a wedding. He had a friend that's from here, from Detroit, but her and her husband live in DC, and I think they had a ceremony, but they wanted to have another ceremony for their family in the Detroit area, from what he was telling me, and he wanted a place to crash. And I said, no problem. With my cousin is like done for me, you're welcome. I wouldn't do this for anybody. This particular cousin has looked out for me. I'm the oldest child. I've never had a big brother, and I found out when he came up here, he's vaccinated. I'm still not I haven't taken what I call the what. And I asked him, and I asked, just like when I met my friend's mother-in-law when she got the you know what. And I asked which one. It was the same one. The the company starts with the M, by the way. And he described similar to what my friend, what he was even describing of his mother-in-law. And I remember what she was telling me, right? Because I came over, I didn't know. Right after one time, me and a friend, we were briefly meeting up, and we were practicing social distancing, in case you're wondering, stuff like that. I don't really I give people their space. When I talk to them, I remember they were emphasizing that at first, but all of a sudden they're trying to tell the nine people who haven't taken the poison that you're the ones that are the cause of spreading the what. But I find it mighty funny that we had just had not too long ago General Colin Powell. They just say died from complications from COVID, but you notice they always cover up and say they don't talk about he got the what, or it's even suspected that DMX got the what. Another person in black media, Mark Lamont Hill, was pushing the what very heavily, and ended up in the hospital with major blood clotting issues. Which, when you watch these independent media sites that I've been sharing with you guys, been telling you about, harping on, please go back and watch my videos where I talk about alternative web hosting video platforms. I'm trying to warn you. By the way, they give the real evidence, despite I'm not saying that everything that you watch, make your own assessment, your own evaluation. I'm not telling you it's the Bible, or it's going to take you to heaven or whatever. I'm not selling you on a pipe dream, but I'm sharing with you information I've already researched. I stay abreast of. I watch both sides. I pay very close attention. And the reason some may say, well, why do you still watch the local media, the mainstream media? I told a friend, I want to see what lies they're up to. I want to be able to disseminate. Just like, when you were in middle school, high school, you took English class, grammar class. You ever had a teacher put you on an assignment, whether it be science or English, which I loved a lot of my subjects, and you had to compare notes, compare a book that you read, or compare two different things against one another. You guys get what I mean? So when I compare the mainstream media versus the independent media, and I see majority of the propaganda coming from the mainstream media. Notice they always will use, when there's something that doesn't fit the narrative, and it's easy. I lived with a street gangster before. One of my best friends growing up. I lived with this cousin, by the way, at one time some years ago, and his cousin's more so a street guy, very smart. I would say intellectual. I don't like to use the term thug or nothing like that, but I'll say he's street smart. Kind of remind me, if you guys are familiar with the show Wire, the character that Idris Elba played. I think he was like the older brother in the family, but he was like a more so a mastermind. My friend's cousin was brilliant like this, and was into some other things I won't get into. And he would tell me, we have private conversations. He told me his one situation very similar. He said, man, somebody must be talking in that person's ear, or that person's hiding something. He would say this. He was like, man, they're hiding something. So a lot of this stuff that's come out in the news, about, whether it be about the jab, about the election, um, Pizzagate. Notice with all these big scandals, YouTube comes in, Facebook comes in as a big savior, and all of a sudden these whistleblowers, they get their channels removed, they get shut down. All of a sudden, you guys see the pattern there. What are they trying to hide? If they're trying to convince us there was no fraud that took place, these the poison is very safe. We promise you it has no side effects, no injuries. But I'm seeing compilation videos on BitChute.com from not just here in America, but overseas in other countries. By the way, I'm seeing the actual evidence. I'm not making this up. This is real as day. This is credible. But see, the way they got people so brainwashed, especially MSNBC and CNN, they'll tell you to be 10 years from now, when they get better technology, they'll say I never existed, or I'm a clone talking to you right now. They'll be able to convince people. And it's crazy. It'll be people that'll believe that I'm not who I say I am, that I'm talking to you right now. And this is a form of psychological warfare. It's been a whistleblower just came out recently on Video and talked about during this past, you know what, back in November, they used military tactics, psychological warfare. Now, what's interesting is I knew exactly what they were talking about because recently I had been watching a lot of YouTube videos on the about the different special forces. I wanted to know. I watched them in the past, but just to compare notes, this ties in with the subject I'm talking about. I didn't get off track with Kyrie and Ice Cube if you're wondering, but you have to really evaluate what you're being told, what you're being informed about. This is important. You receive informed consent. There needs to be proper checks and balances and accountability, especially with these pharmaceutical companies, these you know what, these major corporations, these news media. There needs to be major accountability because you're responsible. They're in the public, and there seems to be a lot of the public still has trust of them, and especially not trying to make this a racial thing at all. I'm not trying to pull a race card, but black people, minorities, what you saw happen go on years ago on numerous cases. And I even had to ask one of my relatives about this, not only with the Tuskegee experiment, but with the situation where they experimented with radiation. By the way, I had to ask a relative. I saw photos, pictures about. I had no idea they had done radiological experiments on minorities some years, and I was like, what the, you know, it's part. It was supposed to be, how they are pushing for this. A lot of parents protesting across the country over critical race theory and things of that sort. And I won't give my way, and I'm kind of split on the matter when it comes to that because I have my own hypothesis or theory and my own ideology, but that's neither here nor there. But however, they would go over these experiments that happened because of Black History Month that was like taught in a lot of the schools. And because I've gone to predominantly African American schools growing up, I would be taught or learn about those things. Now, at one time, I went to a private Christian school on the east side. It was predominantly Black students, but we had many years ago, remember, not a lot, but we had a few white students or Caucasians that weren't necessarily minority that went there, by the way. And of course, we had many teachers. Majority of teachers were not minority; they were Caucasian, by the way. And these things were taught. It was the basis. It was a Christian school, by the way. And then I transferred. So I have the best. I say the best of both worlds, by the way. I went, just to give you a little background, and we had to learn about what different teachers of they would have Black History Month. And, even if you didn't get it in the schools, they used to show a show. If you look up, it used to air on PBS. I remember years ago, my parents used to watch it. It was called Eyes on the Prize. By the way, it would document during the civil rights movement many years ago, the so-called the Black struggle, things of that sort. But I see the reason I'm bringing this up. I'm just shocked, surprised. I see so many African Americans that said when who was in office, number 45, they weren't getting the what. Even the person that the individuals that are pushing it now, they're on video footage, by the way, saying they weren't going to get it, and they were adamant, but all of a sudden, when they got, the commander and thief, when he was able to get, who out the way, oh, then he makes it all of a sudden mandatory. Now, mind you, this previous individual who was in office, remember they were trying to get him to lock down every state. They wanted him to do a mandatory lockdown. They were pushing for it. And he said no, he would leave it up to the state governors or whatever, as far as their own, what, to handle their biz. So I just find it's mighty interesting that a lot of people and minorities, and my own people in particular, are falling for the Kool-Aid. They're drinking the Kool-Aid. And I hope and pray that people out there really do their own assessment evaluation and look into this deeply. Now this is not about, I don't want to say make it seem like, because of course it'll be, it's perceived as they're trying to make this us against them. Oh, you're anti, you know what. I get it. As the collective, they have the technology, the capability to make a you know what for you. I won't say the word, you guys know what I mean. That will be helpful, that could prevent things, could prevent that illness, sickness from actually, hurting you. They could make quality things. I learned this many years ago, by the way. I read David Icke's books, and he talked about they could make water systems like what Flint went through. They could make a whole filtration system for a city that would produce clean water. But the powers that be, the Illuminati, the ruling class, they don't want to do that. By the way, that's why they put lithium, mercury, fluoride. It's best to get a water filter to filter that stuff out. Bromide, bromine, lithium, all that. You look at those charts. By the way, they can make a clean system for an entire city, but they will refuse to do it. Just like I have faith, they can make quality. Just say it, vaccines that are not harmful. It's not that, I get it where some say where George Clooney came out and spoke against Ice Cube when I read the article, and he said others, because the article said Hollywood is actually split. They said there's actually quite a bit of actors or people within Hollywood that are refusing it, and it's just mainstream. Of course, they don't want to put that out there, because they want the goal from the powers that be at the top, the criminals, the tyrants that run us, the Marxists, the communists that run behind the scenes, that Dr. Fauci and others roll with, that created the you know what, don't want that out there. They're the mainstream media, which they have a lot of money tied in with the mainstream, like Comcast owns NBC, Disney owns ABC. That's a lot of control. That's a monopoly, by the way. And I don't understand why these antitrust laws are not being enforced the way they should, to break up. That was the purpose, supposed to keep corporations from forming super conglomerates, to make it better, fair checks and balances. That's why I tell you guys, you need independent media. By the way, you need independent media. Is very, very important. Trust me when I say this, to stay abreast of. By the way, and I when George Clooney, he with the statement I wanted to get back to, not to get off track. He's saying that, okay, those who refuse should go put themselves on a private island or go quarantine themselves. I get it that you care about the collective, but what we're saying to you, George Clooney, also Stephen A. Smith and others, these are not conspiracy theories. If you ignoramuses would do the due diligence and look up, you idiots, we're saying that these particular mRNA, you know what's, are designed or weaponized or bioweapons. We're just asking you, take a look. This is not crazy talk. This is not conspiracy theory. There's massive evidence. There's numerous amounts of doctors, professional, well astute people that have gone through years of schooling, doctor school, residency. I know a nurse personally, someone behind the scenes, and I'm sorry, I need to get back in touch with her. 'Cause I haven't really reached out to her in a while. She did travel work. I won't say her name or who she is, but kudos to her, and I support her, in the stance that she's taken. But I saw some years ago, I said there's something we have in common, because this was in the making, and this is what it looks like the ruling class, some of the evil ones, were going through to push their great reset, their new world order. And this is tied in with the great reset, the new world order, in case you're wondering. This is connected to that, by the way. Remember some years ago, if you guys have a good memory like I do, and you know who Jesse Ventura is, for example. Remember, he was the former governor of Minnesota at one time. He was famous for being a wrestler on WWF years ago. He used to be a Navy SEAL, served in the special forces, and remember, he had a show on True TV some years back called Conspiracy Theory. It's about maybe a decade ago. approximately. Very really good show. A lot of different episodes, meet with people, do investigations, and he had a researcher on there. I believe she was from overseas, a black woman. While did excellent research, investigative journalism. By the way, his son Tyrell Ventura did work with the movie producer Oliver Stone's son, Sean Stone. By the way, uh, so but on a side note, there was one episode he did with a lady he interviewed, and this was an episode that involved AJ, from Texas. You guys can figure out who I'm saying. And he interviewed Dr. Rima Label. Dr. Rima Label, by the way, and he re-aired this on Band.video to show people. And I brought it up. It's funny when I mentioned this in a previous video. I saw him put it on Band.video, almost like I feel like he watches my channel or somebody does, or share it with them, which I don't mind. It got back to him because I have a good memory like that. They don't want you to remember stuff. But she warned us. She said she had worked for someone that was a head of state, and this person had told her it's almost time for the big culling or whatever to take place. And she went into the details and said they're going to use a pandemic, by the way, in the disguise of a pandemic, and they're going to do XYZ. You have to go back. You can sometimes you can order from these TV networks the DVDs, but if you might be on YouTube, by the way. I would do a search on the internet first, and go back and look up Dr. Rima Labo. She warned us some years ago. This is not conspiracy theory. This is a fact. To see how brilliant some of us researchers are, people that have good memories, instead of just listening to news anchors or commentators, analysts run off at the mouth, like when Stephen A. Smith was dishing Kyrie Irving and trying to say, oh, whatever conspiracy theories Kyrie has, he needs to let him go. And, it's like, come on, I've never seen so much buck shucking and jiving, buck licking, for your master, Stephen A. I mean, it's just foolishness, and I see Kwame Brown, even has something to say, former basketball player. Big shout out to Kwame. And I saw how they talked about Kwame for years. They would use him as the butt of jokes because he used to play for the Washington Wizards with Michael Jordan, and in their eyes, he didn't live up to the expectations, but he accomplished a lot. Coming straight out of high school, being recruited into the NBA. A lot of people don't get that opportunity. And I just say, for the simple fact that playing professional sports, just to make it to the NBA, people don't understand you have to be elite talent, the best, like best of the best. I had a teacher back in middle school. His name was Mr. Broadway. By the way, I forget which class he taught. I think he taught music and other things, but he was kind of like he was a positive person. When I went to Evangel Christian Academy, Christian school, years ago, he would give prep talks to the students, fill in for us. He may have been would do assistant teaching, fill in for the gym coach. And he told us back then, he said, some of you guys only a handful of you guys, less than 1%, are going to make it to the NBA. He said you're going to need to have a plan. He told us this way back in middle school, way back when I was in middle school. Said you're going to need to have, education. So I commend Kwame Brown for his motivational talks, speaks when I go to tune into his channel, and others out there. They're genuine. So we need people like Kyrie Irving, Ice Cube. I fully support them. I stand with Kyrie, and I support Ice Cube's decision. And this is not clout chasing. This is from the heart. This is genuine. This is how I feel, what I saw. And I know it can be hard. These are some hard, difficult times. People have tough decisions because some people, they don't want to go through a legal fight. And I get it. That some of these jobs, they're breaking the law. They're telling people, employees, you can't, they're literally saying you can't work. You can't earn a living or put a roof over their head. So I know some people feel like they're making a tough decision where they said, well, I got a family to feed. I'm the breadwinner of the family. I may have a daughter or wife. And I'll admit, if I was in some NBA player shoes, if I had already had a wife and children, by the way, based on how much money I had, how much research I had done, I still wholeheartedly respect Kyrie's decision, and I respect Andrew Wiggins when he held out for my favorite team, the Golden State Warriors. And even if they kind of downplay what he said after he got the vaccine, he said he's genuinely concerned and worried about taking an mRNA if it's gonna mess up his system down the road. Like, you might not see immediate effects, but he said he was concerned. He voiced his opinion, and they kind of just shoved it off once he got it, in a way. But I heard the rest of his family is still not vaccinated. And in terms of religious belief, too, the way the law works, a lot of people don't understand. You don't have to specifically disclose what part, even just because you're a professional basketball player. Those things are supposed to be private according to the law. For all these, some of these people that are trying to call people like who will mention things like this, anti-vaxxers and stuff like that, got to understand, a lot of them are ignorant and don't know the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I've studied enough and I've researched and know how the law works, and you don't have to disclose all of the details of that information. In terms of years ago, when sheiks, for example, were where I've seen wear turbans at their employers, like at the post office. By the way, I asked a friend years ago, how come? Because I would see discriminatory practices go on with African Americans where they wouldn't be allowed to wear, I wholeheartedly supported the sisters that want to wear their bonnets, even though some felt it wasn't professional, or dudes that will wear their do-rag. But I would say, how come the sheiks that are Indian, East Indian people, I would see able to wear their turban at their employer. I saw one guy in Farmington Hills, Michigan, delivering mail, was wearing his, and others out there and I worked with Muslims, Arabs at a plant, and they were able to wear their stuff. But when it, as African American, when it came to expressing our culture, even if it was a pseudo culture or hood style, it was always a problem. Like, I remember years ago, I wore a Coogee hat at a job, and they were telling me to take it off. But everybody else, or certain people, mighty funny, is rules for thee, but not for me. That the tyrants and people in charge make special rules and create um classes. It's a caste system. They also use this for divide and conquer. So you got to watch the thing they're trying to promote between the vax and anti-vax. That's why I said I told the story about my cousin earlier, my older cousin that stayed with me. True story. Stayed with me towards the end of August. He came in town for his birthday, had a good time. Appreciate Big Cuz. I meant to get back. He sent me a couple messages, always sends me positive notes. I think we have a different train of thought, and I want to have the conversation with him. He did tell me a story why he felt convinced or compelled, why he ended up getting the Moderna vaccine, by the way, which is the same one my friend's mother-in-law got a while prior, that I had saw, and she told me she experienced some of the similar things that I saw. But that's neither here nor there. But I had a good time. So I want to say, I'm not bashing you if you did get the poison. I understand some people are compelled in really tough decisions, but at the same time, don't it's important that respect Kyrie and the decision he made, and others out there. It was other players too, from what I understand. Bradley Beal, that plays for the Washington Wizards, by the way. I read the full article on ESPN, articulated himself very well, and had a very good conversation about this, and brought up things from both sides. By the way, he said, why isn't there enough discussion being had about people that received that got injuries from taking the poison? Why is that? And he told the reporters this, and I said, that's exactly what I would have addressed them on. Why are you guys focusing on saying that it's going to keep everybody safe? I get the communal concept, but there's those of us, let me say, that have done the research thoroughly, that believe, and I shouldn't say believe, but know from evidence out there, whistleblowers who have come out, because so many people that's received it, and there's a lot of people that have been injured and die immediately. You look at Hank Aaron, basketball player, baseball player, Hall of Famer, that one of the first to broke the record, got the second shot died. Marvin Hagler, former boxer, died. Look at, they tell you if you get it, it'll protect you, and it doesn't prevent transmission or prevent you from spreading it either. Look at Oscar De La Hoya, ends up in the hospital. Look at Mark Lamont Hill. Look at Colin Powell, ends up dead. You think it's a coincidence? All these people are dropping dead, and they're not telling you the reason why. Come on, we're human beings. You guys out here this scared, you're not using common sense. This is the time. The fight is now. There's a lot of people years ago I would talk real tough about the New World Order, the one world government, and stuff like this. But they're punking down now. You're not gonna be able to pray your way out of this. There's things that if we don't have enough people to speak up or stand up and fight, that these ruling class elite have in store, it's not gonna be pretty. And I don't believe this thing where I hear from some people that, oh, you can't defeat them, or they're gonna get their way. But I think there are victories that are happening. But however, you can't just have, just like in life, a give up mentality. By the way, like I hear from a lot of women, a lot of sisters in my community that say, for example, they speak positive that you always should be progressing towards something, but that also should equivalent to you shouldn't just accept anything. You should be involved in the fight. You shouldn't just, as Kwame Brown says, the go along, get along gang. You shouldn't just go along with the narrative. You should research, investigate, have conversation, have dialogue with your family. They send you something, because what I'm getting ready to work on doing is I get from time to time different emails or texts. It send information back about, look into these videos or news videos trying to warn you about the poison, or what it's done, or what it has done already. These are real life actual stories, by the way. This stuff isn't made up. But at the same time, I want to speak to that. When I would hear like George Clooney, when he gave a response saying to people that don't want to get the vaccine, and I heard this numerous times, saying you need to go quarantine yourself on a private island, or you shouldn't deserve medical care, medical treatment, by the way, which they have rules against playing favoritism. But now, because we're coming into the New World Order, a lot of stuff is changing. Biden is trying to ask OSHA to change their rules specifically for this poison, because what it is, for the most part, the mRNA that has graphene oxide and other things. But ask these liberals, or tell you is that are trying to convince you that it's safe. Ask them, what are the ingredients. You have a relative, just ask them, what's the ingredients. Why can't they never tell you or name off the ingredients inside? Like Stephen A. Smith, by the way, try to call it Kyrie a conspiracy theorist, and Kyrie is not a conspiracy theorist, by the way. And this is in defense of Kyrie and why I stand with Kyrie. And it doesn't mean that just because, even with these sites that I direct you guys to get the real information, I'm just, freely sharing this. I encourage you all to do your own homework. That's why I give a disclaimer. This is not medical. This is advice. This is not legal. Consult your own physician. Do your own research. Don't take my word for what I'm saying, for what I'm just sharing with you. But please do your own research. However, with that being said, I know last year that Kyrie Irving, when what happened with George Floyd, I was telling a friend of mine, for example, because I keep up with the NBA, I've kept up for years, National Basketball Association. There's another player that used to play for my favorite team, the Golden State Warriors, and he was one of my favorite players when he played years ago. I remember when he played for the Warriors back in '07 with Baron Davis, who's now retired from the league. But there's a player named Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson. A lot of you all, some of you all may know this. A lot of people don't. Steven Jackson was good friends with George Floyd, by the way. I guess I didn't know this originally, but I watched the interviews, and they said Kyrie Irving was calling. This is rumors was coming out, because some stories mainstream media doesn't pick up because mediocre, but you hear things through the grapevine. Like say if you pay attention, the entertainment news or small hip hop news sites that are popping up now that's like media gossip where they gossip a lot or just give you that type of gossip news. So I can stay abreast of stuff like that. Because I also listen to that type of music and I get into other subcultures and genres. But just sharing this Kyrie was concerned. He was calling because he knew how hurt Steven Jackson was. So he was calling, checking on him. They said this is rumored. I can't confirm this, but he said he was crying almost every day for a portion of days. That he was so hurt on behalf of Steven Jackson being friends with George Floyd and telling the story how he witnessed that on TV and the matter of the way that he died, that Kyrie was calling. So Kyrie is a real humanitarian. It's funny, all these people have turned all of a sudden. Kyrie has given to I heard donated to different groups. He's an activist. By the way, he's donated, done things. And I don't know why they're not putting that out there, but they all of a sudden, because of his stance on the vaccine, they're calling him a conspiracy theorist, a flat earther. And I heard from one of my sources, he doesn't even study or practice the flat earth anymore or whatever. I did hear he was initiated or inducted into a Native American tribe or group, adopted him in as their family. That's what I heard about a year ago. So I saw at one of the games last year he had burned incense or something. I said I love stuff when I see stuff like that. I've always loved players, musicians who are activists that are authentic. And Kyrie is in being authentic and who he is. I support that wholeheartedly. Just like Ice Cube turned down for this movie deal $9 million. They say with Kyrie, even though they just decided to sit him out, he's losing. The NBA said they're not going to pay players for missing away games when they go on the road if they're not vaccinated. So he's taking a big pay cut. You got to tell me, out of all the other players, they said if over 90% of the NBA did decide to get vaccinated, which is about the case, about right, there's still a few out there that haven't. Like, you also had Jonathan Isaac that played for the Orlando Magic, gave very a great speech about natural immunity. That is enough discussion isn't had about that as far as having the antibodies, and the antibodies actually stay in your system longer. They're trying to make it seem like it doesn't, but they stay in your system if people that have already had COVID and fought it off. By the way, enough that conversation. Why isn't that being had enough? But he was another one. You had Bradley Beal, who if you can go read what he said, had very elegant words, hood street guy. And I was surprised, Bradley Beal, the way he articulated himself. I went to ESPN.com and I read the article. I not only check on the sports highlights there, I'll read the articles, read the stories from time to time. And I encourage you guys, if you can still pull it up, to show you how good of a researcher I am. I'm thorough, meaning if you check the authenticity and the accuracy of the information I'm sharing, you will see that I'm not trying to boast or brag, but this is elite, what I'm sharing with you guys. I give you guys high power stuff. By the way, being an intellectual person that I am, just putting it out there. But Kyrie is a true humanitarian, and I couldn't believe the vitriol that I saw from watching these sports analysts that's come his way. And only one I saw anchor that really defended Kyrie was I think Jay Williams, who used to play for Duke, believe it or not, years ago. It's interesting. I used to ask about him when years ago I was inspired in the early 2000s. I used to actually have the Duke, what's that cap, the people visor people wear in the summertime. I had went on a trip with a good friend of mine. We took pictures, and I actually was inspired off of Jay Williams. Well, years ago, he was like, with me being a shorter guy below 6 feet, and he was around. He's still taller than me, but he could dunk. By the way, and I was always inspired back then. I had dreams. I used to play basketball. I got a chance to actually play in college. By the way, it's a whole nother discussion. And I was inspired, and I will work on my vertical leap. By the way, because the concept is when you're a shorter guy, you have to make up for lack of the height. But I was told I had long arms. I was a good defender. I was a guard. By the way, I played for Davenport University, which used to be Detroit College of Business, but shortly after, when they got bought out and became by Davenport, which was based in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I believe, who bought a lot of the mom and pop colleges up. And Detroit College of Business was one of them. And I went to the campus that used to be in Dearborn, that was on Oakland and Michigan Avenue area. Met a lot of phenomenal people there. It's with a fraternity, frat brother. They treated me like brothers, even though I never went through initiation. Richard G, Jermaine, and guys with the Phi Beta Sigma crew. And I got a chance to go to one of their parties, the Zetas. Big shout out to those brothers. Really good brothers. Met great people at that school. Got great advice from a sister years ago, Darian Hudson, by the way, one of my first crushes, by the way. But it was experience because I never really live life like that in high school. I was a shy kid. I was nervous, but I looked for things. I look at things for inspiration, and as you grow in life, you learn from your failures and even successes, and you want to continue to grow and get better at your craft. So that's one of the reasons why the concept I tell that story. We have to work. Some of us that have challenges or obstacles, I pushed. That's why I worked really hard. I had to work harder at the time, by the way. And there, I remember running into the coach some years later. I no longer was attending the school, and he actually asked about me. It made me feel special, by the way, because you never know what could have been. I got a chance to actually, I actually had never played in high school, but I found out the coach I went to Cooley High School in Detroit, and I found out Coach Ben Kelso, who used to play for the Detroit Pistons, by the way, had found out, had saw me in one of my regular gym classes. I played like maybe 2-on-2 with a guy, one of my classmates, and saw how good I was in several different games, and found out he scouted me out pretty much because scouts will come up there. I remember the guys. I didn't understand the concept how guys made it to the NBA, other than some of the guys that went to high school, stuff like that. I didn't know about too much about recruiting or things of that sort. But I found out my mom had went to a parent teacher conference years ago and told me you should try out for the team. And because I didn't have a big brother there at the time, or my father wasn't really in my life like he should have been, I was the oldest child, so I didn't really have the confidence. Being a shorter guy, by the way, would explain I had to develop the confidence in things. I had to overcome a lot later on in life. But I tell this story, maybe this can be inspiring for other people. But I think back those memories, even though I never got a chance to make it go to the NBA, but at least I said to myself, I got the chance where I had never played in high school. And when my mom found out, she was trying to convince me back then. And once I got to college, I transferred from DeVry in Columbus, Ohio. That was actually the first college I attended, DeVry Institute of Technology, which is now DeVry University. I used to go to the Columbus campus. Then I transferred back and started at Detroit College of Business, which became Davenport University, got bought out, by the way. And Coach Fox, we call Oliver Coach Fox. The guy, I remember Jamel, one of my teammates, he was a guard, I would say shooting guard. I was a point guard, so we were basically like the backcourt, by the way. And I was learning the schematics at the time, so that was inspiration for me at the time. And there was some tough challenges during that particular time period. I never got a chance to play in any of the actual games, but I got a chance to practice with the team at the time. I didn't want it to be difficult on Jamel to come all the way out to Belleville to pick me up, because at the time or prior, my family had been involved in a house fire. I was the last person to make it out the house, by the way. I had got smoke damage, I didn't realize months later I came down with walking pneumonia, bronchitis, and tonsillitis I was diagnosed with. Originally, they found the bronchitis and tonsillitis, and then they found later on traces of pneumonia in my lungs. The doctor called me back to showed me from the x-rays, and they gave me antibiotics at the time. This was back then, sometime in the early 2000s, by the way. late 2001. I was still taking classes at Davenport in the midst of the changeover at the time down the road. But these are things down the road. I got an opportunity back then. You never know where life will take you. But I love sports, the camaraderie, and the reason I'm doing this video, not to deviate too far off track, I wanted to show support for my brother Ice Cube out there, Kyrie Irving, as well as others that have just had the conversation and spoken out, even if they did get the jab, the some call the poison. I understand the challenges some people are facing, understanding some difficult times. Like I said earlier, some people may look at it as they don't have that much information, but if you get a chance, you want to check the independent media sites and really research the quality of what are you putting in, what are these mRNA shots, and why all of a sudden, how did the medical personnel I was going to mention earlier last year, the firefighters, the nurses, the police officers went from the heroes to now those who refuse the poison being called the enemy and anti-vaxxers. And you got to pay attention to that. Like there was an ulterior motive, by the way. Why is that? Last year they go from heroes to now they're the enemy all of a sudden. You're anti-vaxxer, this, that, and the other. You gotta watch that. Where did all this come from all of a sudden? And that's why I told the story with my friend's cousin I stayed with, who's a street gangster. And I love the experience that I had, by the way, because you learn, you grow from every experience I had. I look at it like when I stayed at the house on the east side with them before I moved back on the west side at the time of the city. He taught me life lessons, and I told my friend, we spoke privately. He would share things, from a man, from being in the streets, being he was a former U.S. Marine, and he had also been in prison before, by the way, and would share life lessons, life stories. So we would chop it up, you know what I'm saying? And I've been around a lot of different people, but I think, in my humble opinion, if you guys are wondering, Kyrie Irving is genuine and Ice Cube is real, and I respect that. And kudos to these brothers, and they turn down the money. It's people trying to say that what Kyrie did is not no comparison to Kaepernick. I think it's bigger than what Kaepernick did, Colin Kaepernick, and I respect Kaepernick's decision. That's a whole nother discussion within itself. But I think Kyrie, what he's doing is just as big. And I think, and a lot of people don't know, they try to make this a political thing where this is conservative or Democrat, but it's people on both sides of the aisle that are either for or against that you have. And it was people protesting together. They said this recent protest at the Barclays Center that was on behalf of Kyrie. One of the NBA analysts was reporting to Malika Andrews that this was the most diverse protest he had ever seen. He said he saw grandmothers there, children. I've seen, even prior to this protest, I saw a lot of diversity. It touched me. I saw people, Trump supporters and LGBTQ marching together. You could tell with the flags from all different walks of life. There were people coming together, and that's what it's about. Those, I understand there's a lot of people still maybe blue pilled, they're not red pilled yet, but there was a lot. It's bringing a lot of people together genuinely. So it's important you continue to educate your loved ones, your family members. Even if you did get the jab, there's also people, a lot of people, this isn't being discussed, but this is talked about on the independent media sites. There's people that have like what's called buyer's remorse, or people that already got the jab and honestly didn't know, and now they're concerned and they want to reverse the side effects. There's a community of people, if you get on these independent media sites, that can assist you and help you, by the way. And some of them are band.video, frankspeech.com. I've met people privately, by the way. And what's some other sites? Minds.com, gab.ai, by the way. If you interact, Brighteon, Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, has very good videos, very good updates. That's brighteon.com with Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. Rumble. Lately, I've been watching Stu Peters. I love his show, the Stu Peters show. And look at the people he's interviewing. These are very professional people, medical whistleblowers, doctors. Some even are risking their lives. You just don't know. There's stuff that's happened to nurses and doctors and people too. By the way, that people don't hear about. That there's people out there that are really on the front lines that not only were risking their lives working during the pandemic, which I commend, but they're risking their lives to come out as whistleblowers because the powers that be, which I told you all earlier on, is censoring even my channel. By the way, it appears as though my AdSense revenue, since I had got that strike earlier, I told you guys about earlier in the year when I did a video and I said something about the election, and that particular video wasn't geared towards that, but it got strike, and it's supposed to not get removed until sometime next month, or whatever. They're ramping up big time, and they held my AdSense revenue, by the way. So I'm not, it's not accruing, by the way, because notice they come after your finances, like they punish you. This is evil. This is my friend. I tell him about this behind the scenes. He says he's starting to notice this. This is downright evil, and they're trying to say if you don't get this poison, then you can't work or you can't attend certain events. If you live, especially if you live in certain areas that have draconian rules and laws, this is very demeaning to do to people. But however, at the same time, there's hope. I want to encourage those out there, if you have the ability, to get involved in the fight, support the activists. I want to get the word out there. I support Kyrie. I support Ice Cube, Nicki Minaj, even if she decided to get it, despite Andrew Wiggins, the stance he took for holding out as long as he did. I respect you, bro. I understand. I believe. I know you have a family to feed. I respect that wholeheartedly. But at the same time, we need to be asking questions. Is this mRNA? Is this designed that produces the spike protein? Is this really helping? And why is the media mainstream ignoring the injuries that have occurred and the deaths? By the way, why is that? We have to question that. I'm gonna read these comments before I wrap the video up. By the way, let's see who's in the chat, who jumped in. Oh, looks like we got quite a few. All right, we got Eileen's hair studio. Hello from Florida. Greetings. Appreciate you, Eileen. Big shout out from Florida. Florida in the house. I used to live in Orlando some years ago. By the way, Mary Saunders says hello, Mr. Dorsey. Hello, Mary, loyal subscriber. Thank you for joining, Mary. Chi Vegas says peace, peace. Hey, Chi, thank you for joining. 7100 Warhawk says, hello, Mr. Dorsey. It's good to make the live stream. Appreciate you joining, 7100 Warhawk. Chi Vegas says, I'm glad Kyrie is standing his ground. We have to use discernment on most of these celebrities. Yes, we do. I agree with that. And that's why I felt compelled to do this video. Floyd Mayweather came out in support of him. The music artist Chris Brown, the singer, also supports Kyrie Irving. The former basketball player Steven Jackson mentioned he supports Kyrie. He was also friends with George Floyd, by the way. Just on a side note, and when I told you guys the story, Kyrie is a truly humanitarian. The reason I told you guys the story, he was calling to check on Stephen Smith, and they said he was crying because he found out, Steven Jackson, former basketball player Steven Jackson, who used to play for the Golden State Warriors, my current favorite team, was friends with George Floyd. He knew personally, by the way. Guess they're from the Houston area. And Kyrie, they say, was calling and was crying, was hurt on behalf and showing compassion. So I know Kyrie and his character is a true humanitarian. And for these people, NBA players and NBA analysts, to just turn on him like that, it's just cold-blooded, just to be saying that stuff, especially Stephen Smith, to be buck shucking and buck dancing for your masters out there is just, just something else. So I'm saying also in defense of Kyrie, I stand with Kyrie, support you, word out there, and Ice Cube, many others that have spoken out. True facts. So appreciate you, Chi. Which on Rose Gold Star says, hello, Dorsey. Rose Gold Star says, does it violate people's HIPAA rights? We don't ask each other, did you get the flu shot or the sexual transmitted disease shot? It's crazy out here. Yes, it does. What they're trying to do, Rose, to answer your question, they're changing. I heard that allegedly that Biden administration, Biden specifically, went to OSHA, is put pressure on them to change their rules, because companies, if they want to require to get the shot originally under the original rules, if you got injured from it, that would be considered workers' compensation, or they would have to pay for your families, your death costs, funeral costs, and things. Why is that? The vaccine companies are already immune, well, most of them, from lawsuits. A friend of mine was explaining, I don't know all the details, but a friend of mine, he can explain that aspect very well. That a lot of these companies that produce that are immune, and we need, that's a real concern. There needs to be a course of action, that if this is so safe and effective, and even one nurse said, even if 4 people die from it, that's not completely safe. That's concerning. And I know they can make things, they could make a vaccine out there that could be quality, that could be preventable out there, but people don't ask what the ingredients are, the graphene oxide, the lithium, the other things that doctors are discovering under the microscopes, the blood clots that is causing, and things of that sort. These are genuine questions. But Draymond Green, the other Golden State basketball player that was captain of the team, that spoke on behalf of Andrew Wiggins, I don't know if you know about this, Rose Gold Star. He gave a good story about that when he spoke to the media. He told the story, his grandmother years ago. He comes from the era, and I come from that era too. I remember asking an aunt years ago, who did you vote for? And those type of things stayed private many years ago. That was not disclosed. We live in a society today, and just because someone is public, they don't have to disclose that information. That's part of their private life, by the way. So yeah, that is a violation of HIPAA, in my opinion. But they're changing a lot of stuff. They're trying to normalize intrusion of privacy, because there's an appears to be an ulterior motive at hand, and you obviously, many can see where that's headed. By the way, Star Sorcerer said, had a professor like that at Morgan State. Okay, says, yep, they pushed and the government were in charge. Okay, not sure what you're really referring to. If you want to elaborate, Star Sorcerer, if you still watching, about the professor. Says George Goon is a part of the Illuminati, and isn't he on the indictment list? I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, because a lot of those Hollywood actors, just look at the people Harvey Weinstein was connected to. Remember, I forget, when the music artist Seal had came out and said, when Oprah was saying this stuff about the Me Too movement, but you can still find the photos online of her sucking Weinstein's ear, and it was alleged that she was sending women to Weinstein. And look at the photos and the closeness, and even her friend with Meryl Streep at one of the award shows gave like a praise before Harvey Weinstein got locked up. They were all in the same get along club. And then remember Oprah, when she built that school overseas in Africa, she had a scandal years ago at the school where one of the girls was molested. I'm just saying, but because she's a woman, women naturally see, you just unlike the movies, you got to use common sense. That you have women who are also part of this, who are bad guys. A friend of mine was telling me, a historian, Michael Tessarian, years ago, talked about the female Illuminati. There's females out here that practice sorcery, that's part of different secret societies, high secret orders. You have Eastern Stars, you got Sisters of Osiris, different chapters, just like you have men that are part of different secret societies. So don't think, a lot of people in Hollywood, we already know, a part of that, the cult, go through them different initiations, and the what Professor Griff talks about, the $20 million club on up. And she's met with some of the some of the most sinister people in the world. Remember years ago, she met with Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Rockefeller Medical in New York, and she's rolled in categories with these people. So you think she wouldn't be part of it too? For example, just because she's a woman, she can do no harm. She's a guardian angel. You guys got to use common sense and stop playing just favoritism for your favorite politician. I've been studying the Illuminati. I've been studying, watching this for years, and I think a lot of people are just sometimes they'll be starstruck and give their stars a free pass sometimes. But you got to look. A lot of people are part of this. Remember the music artist Seal, who did that Batman soundtrack, told Oprah, said you were part of this, and then there was a scandal that came out to put him in his place. Like, no, Seal, to shut him up. They didn't want him talking. You see, so that's what they do. They punish people. They try to come after your money. What are they? And you have to ask the question: what are they trying to hide? So we know Hollywood is full of. I'm not saying everyone's like this. That's what reason I'm doing the video is we need the stars, just like music artists used to be political years ago. Jimi Hendrix, Aretha Franklin, others, athletes, Muhammad Ali, famous people were vocal. We need that. We need the stars, entertainers, because they're eventually, there's gonna come a point. You can't hide this. You can't escape this. You know. Hadruple Sosa says, I recall that show. Okay. Drupal Sosa says Jesse is still making moves. Okay, I see you were talking about when I brought up conspiracy theory. Yeah, with Dr. Rima Label, that was the whistleblower. She warned us what they were going to do years ago. Remember, if you remember, some years ago, she came on a show on True TV. That was approximately 10 years ago. Aired sometime around maybe 2012, 2011. I can't remember specifically, but it was about a decade ago. And she mentioned they were going to use under the disguise of a pandemic. She said she knew someone who she used to work because she was a private. She was a doctor, but she did private medical work, and she worked for like a head of state or an elite. And this elite told her that it's almost time for the big calling or great calling. Remember, she met with Alex Jones at the time, and I think it's different things that me and a friend of mine agreed years ago. You got to understand the Illuminati's. He said Illuminati's plans don't fail; it just changes. So that was one of the things they pulled out the card. By the way, Drupal Sosa says Stephen A. is Boule along with Kobe Bryant. Okay, gotcha. Stephen A. was groomed for black genocide. Yeah. Some people say, yeah, he buck shucking and jiving and cooning for his masters out there. Many are saying like he talking like he's Kyrie's daddy or something. When he gets on there, it's like we're not saying, I'm not anti-vax. It's just we have questions that with the accuracy we need to see. We need to see the lab results. We need to see a TV special prove to the American people that all these vials they're getting from where people get the shots from CVS or whatever. We need to see that what the ingredients are. Why hasn't it been tested? Normally, vaccines have to be tested for a certain number of years. We have questions. We get it as a whole. You want to, protect if it was really doing that, but it doesn't prevent transmission. And see, the problem is it creates this back and forth because they want to create a us against them. And a lot of those Boule type people, they're not doing the research, or they want to continue to keep the brainwashing going on the program. Some of them know. Like it's a report just came out. A lot of Congress people had received ivermectin. They say Joe Rogan's doctor had. I saw one of the latest headlines. I didn't watch the full video, but his doctor, by the way, because Joe Rogan came down with COVID. He's hosted that show. Used to come on TV named Fear Factor. He's been like an announcer for the UFC. He knows Dana White and others, and he came down with COVID not too long ago, and they were trying to make fun of him and trying to make fun of the drug ivermectin that's actually won awards and stuff. I heard Nobel Peace Prize used to treat over 20 different diseases, very versatile, and it's got a human form of it. And they were trying to say all this stuff, but he mentioned he said his doctor confirmed, I don't remember the name of the doctor, that hundreds or thousands of members of Congress had taken ivermectin. Now it's hospitals and places are being told or they're refusing to give it out. A lady had originally won a lawsuit in Ohio where the judge had ruled that a hospital to give was required to give her dad or uncle, I forget who it was, and then they turned around and reversed the decision after it went viral or whatever, the health benefits, because the truth is the hospitals, they don't they want to treat the symptom but not cure the cause because they want to keep you coming back. I read this from David Icke's book years ago. They treat the symptom, they don't cure the cause. You see, to get you hooked on medications and stuff, you want to look at naturopathic remedies, herbs, and things of that sort. You don't want to disregard. Now, I've used regular medications and stuff too, so I'm not going to try to act like I'm a health nut or health freak or anything of that like that. I'm just saying. But however, you got to read in between the lines with the monopolies and what the pharmaceutical companies are doing and their involvement. By the way, which gets into a whole nother conversation. I'm just running through the comments. I'm going to get ready to shut things down. Quadruple Sosa says that's because you had a social security number. You should have come in with a Coogie turban to confuse them or convince the sheiks to rock the Coogee hat. Yeah, I still get that too, what you're saying, but it was still a form at the time, still a form of discriminatory practices. That's why I show solidarity with what minorities, what they go through. I have a friend that's a black conservative, genuine black conservative. He understands, and we've chopped it up. We can agree to disagree. We don't. We've had our debates and things at times, and I lean more to the right than I do the left. And the reason so is I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. I wholeheartedly. I was raised a Christian, so I'll say it like this. One woman gave an example years ago. Socially, I'm a liberal, but fiscally, I'm a conservative. Socially, I have liberal, I guess behavior traits, things of that sort. But fiscally, my morals that I have, my value system are more so conservative. The way I, manage, my everyday life or things of that sort, and personality. So socially, I'm a liberal. Fiscally, I'm a conservative. You see, so I'm like a hybrid. And I want to say on a side note, I also meant to mention this. I know what it's like to feel alone or to stand alone, but still not give in. Similar to what I have in common with Kyrie, I have not been a registered voter since 2004. By the way, so that's something I've stayed strong with, stayed firm with on my stance. By the way, haven't been a registered voter since 2004. And there's other contracts that I wasn't part of either that people say, wow, like they're impressed with, but I still have to work on getting myself exiting the matrix, by the way, through these treacherous waters because they set different obstacles and traps. That's neither here nor there. But just to show you guys, that's why another thing, I'm not just spewing off the top of the head, but I've done things. The people that know me personally or know my background know you have to be a tough person. I have to be mentally strong to not give in. This means I've relationships I could have had because I had certain took a certain stance. Certain women didn't maybe want to talk to me or whatever, but I held my ground. That means I just wasn't in just to try to get what, I'm authentic. I'm more genuine. You see, because I don't back down when it comes to my stance on certain things. When I learned about that, and when I know what's wrong and I know what's right. Now, I will say this vaccine thing is a whole nother beast because I spoke of earlier. They're literally putting people in a catch-22 situation where you can't work, you can't eat, you can't put food over the table. So I understand how people have been blackmailed into this and been forced into this, and that's very, very evil, especially with the injuries and the deaths that I've seen. I went over like Colin Powell recently, and they're trying to tell you in the news it was COVID complications, and they said he was fully vaccinated. So you know what that means. We saw what happened once again with Hank Aaron, Marvin Hagler, the boxer, numerous others, whistleblowers that have come out, and they say it's 100% safe. Yeah, okay. So people can, but I encourage those. This is not medical or legal advice. Do your research. It says, wow, so many people affected by the vax. Shake my head. Yep. Says, I remember when, okay, let me scroll now. Got a lot of comments going on there. Okay, I'll read that. I remember when Hollywood was getting infected by COVID in the beginning, specifically Tom Hanks. We are still trying to figure out if it came out of Wuhan or Fauci's lab. Well, they said it's known him and Bill Gates worked with the laboratory over there, and he lied under penalty of he perjured himself. Remember Rand Paul? If you kept up with those hearings, he asked for criminal referral on Fauci, but Fauci, if he's connected to his handlers, are up there with the ruling class elite. There was a photo you can pull up from years ago, by the way. This is a true story. I found it, but you guys can do your own research. He was in a photo with Bill Gates' father was in the picture, uh, who was the head of Planned Parenthood at one time. Warren Buffett, some people from the Astor bloodline, family that's like royal aristocratic nobility, Ted Turner, and some other people from years ago. Fauci was tied in with the AIDS thing, and Dr. Birx as well. If you guys remember her, Dr. Birx. Remember I told you that's why I gave the story about Oprah earlier, because some of the women out there you need to know. Sometimes they send the elites, they send their puppets in the form of women. Look at who's the lady who was connected to Epstein? Ghislaine Maxwell still got a hearing trial going on. While they focus on R. Kelly or Harvey Weinstein, you had Ghislaine Maxwell, and there was a women. I looked at a story from the Miami area. There's a lady who tracked these girls down, and they said Ghislaine Maxwell was way far worse than Epstein. What this true story? Look what these survivors said, and these women were mad. Some of them, there was a lady that investigated and tracked these women down who were victims and mentioned what she was doing when she was working with Epstein years ago. This is some horrific, some real stuff. You guys just got to do your research. I'm a researcher, so I do my homework. By the way, Aunt Sim says they even lied and said DMX died from fentanyl laced cocaine, but they downplayed the fact that he got the vaccine a short time before he passed. Yeah, and I think I brought that up too. I don't find that to be a coincidence either. Yep, DMX facts. So thank you for that, Aunt Sim. Appreciate that. Carol Wilson says, "Peace, Dorsey from Texas." Oh shoot, Texas in the house, in the building, and I've been hearing all this stuff about the controversy. I want to say, I love Texas Governor Abbott, what he's doing, and Ron DeSantis. Kudos to them. Those are real men standing up against the New World Order. The New World Order is real against these ruling class elite scumbags. By the way, that I respect, and we can agree to disagree on things, but a lot of the people that are actually protesting are both from all different sides of the spectrum, are both liberal and conservative. I saw a protest prior to the Kyrie protest that was comprised of people with LGBTQ flags and "Don't Tread on Me" flags. True story. I told a friend of mine, and I remember Cliff High's data sets. I think this is a Webbot hit. I kept hearing him. He reported that there was something that was going to bring both sides together. And I said, this appears like this the vaccine that's bringing both sides. Because remember, Trump got booed at one of his rallies when he was pushing for the vaccine for his supporters, and they booed him. They're like, so this shows these are real people that will still judge you at the end of the day over your politics. They think the liberal and mainstream media will call his supporters just lapdogs and puppets, but people genuinely pay attention to the politics and stances on certain issues and things. But at a lot of these different protests, there has been people from both sides of the aisle, both liberal, conservative, old, young. The NBA analyst that reported to Malika Andrews that protest that broke out at the Barclays Center in New York, he said that was the most diverse protest he saw. And you saw the different flags, there's both sides coming together. There's people from each side, so you can't say it's one-sided. This is not a Democrat or Republican that are all like Republicans are anti-vaccine. That's what the mainstream media is trying to know. There's a lot of liberal people, and I've known this prior. It's split on both sides. They have people that are supposed to be for or against, but you got to watch that because they're trying to make this us against them, and we don't want it to turn into that. Folks out there, just keep that in mind. Like, that's why I told the story in this video about my cousin that stayed with me. I'm not judging in that regard, but I just, think before we make decisions, sometimes we need to make a better assessment. What are we putting in our bodies if you can avoid it? And I get it. Some people's situation that they're they're putting them in a catch 22 situation. By the way, I get that. And it's sad, unfortunate, but I want to tell you at the same time, I've seen the compilation videos with people having convulsions. I saw sadly the video with the woman that told the story about her daughter wanted to be a nurse, and she ended up, she's in a lot of pain, she's suffering, and said they're covering this up. She went to the Biden administration, and they're not allowing this to be seen. You can go watch the video at band.video or freeworldnews.tv. Also subscribe to brighteon.com, Gab. These other independent web hosting platforms don't censor until you build your own platform or get it built up. They have different groups and things. You can network with other like-minded people, by the way, but it's important to get on these other platforms, by the way, to get the real better news reporting, by the way, not so much all this propaganda that's trying to convince you that this poison is safe. It's not, or it's telling you it's 100% effective. It's not. That's not true. So we know Hadrupal Sosa says New Jersey in the house. Okay, New Jersey in the building. So we have Florida, Texas, New Jersey in the house. Big shout out to. All right, all right, all right. We got the shout out the states in the building. So big shout out to all the different places. I've never been to Texas before. I've been to New Jersey before, and I used to live in Florida at one time, by the way. Secret Balance Thoughts Burn says, what's your take on astrology? By the way, I'm into, I think it's accurate. I'm into, lately I've gotten more into Eastern astrology, because even though I grew up in the Christian church religious, my mom, when I tell her about it, she says I don't believe in it, but I tell her I do. I quick to tell her, because what I learned was that we're supernatural beings living in a physical body, and in this universe, this world. If you studied about the planet, our solar system, our galaxy, the Milky Way, the moon, that's responsible for whenever tides would increase in the ocean. Whenever there's a full moon, in many cases, they was reported years ago, the hospitals will see a rise in cases of patients. Tides in the ocean would increase to a higher rate, and they say if 70%, the concept is if our body's made up of 70% water or 90%, there's numbers very, according to different studies, vary, but your body's comprised of a lot of water. Therefore, the Earth's the magnetic field can therefore cause changes within you based on a gravitational pull. So astrology is very true. I just think in Western astrology, people don't go as in depth. I think it's important to learn about your entire chart, your sun sign. That's like the main sign people just go by. You also need to know what your ascendant rising sign is. You need to know what your moon is, really your whole chart. But your ascendant rising, your ascendant is just as powerful as your sun sign, and that's based on the hour that you were born. Every hour, 2 hours, the Earth's magnetic field, gravitational pull goes into a different astrological sign. Just like every so often, about every 2 days, every 3 days, the moon goes into a different sign, by the way. So you're comprised, like I found out, my midheaven is in Aries. Your midheaven is based on like your work life. Then you have your north node and south node. I have to learn more about. But Eastern astrology, I love, is based on the animal signs. I think is highly accurate, by the way. And when I found out about the Eastern chart, what I like about the Eastern chart is it's related to whoever you're compatible with. It will apply, generally speaking, to your brother or sister. If you're of a compatible sign, it would explain why you got along or got along better with that person. By the way, if you had a girlfriend, and if you're compatible with both, like a couple sisters I spoke to about, this is a secret that I know, is that, and I had a conversation with some sisters about a year or two ago. was with a friend of mine. We were invited to an event, and I said I know how to find. I think I brought this up. I know how to basically how you would find your soulmate. You can have multiple soulmates, but what I look for a high compatibility rate when I speak to a sister. If I'm compatible with her in the Western chart and Eastern chart, then that means you have the universe on your side. We're more likely than not soulmates, by the way. There's other factors based on upbringing, how people are raised, based on their value system, their beliefs, and whatnot. But in terms of the Earth, the gravitational field, other factors, dealing with if you're compatible with both charts. Some people refer to the Eastern chart as like Ayurvedic chart, but they have a separate chart as well, the Indian. I have to do more research. But a friend of mine, by the way, just bought me a book on Chinese astrology. By the way, I appreciate it. And I was thinking about doing a video about that down the road. So my take on astrology, I love it. I'm really busy, don't have the time always to study it. It goes very in depth, but I think it's very important to get a better analysis than just the basic. A lot of people over here in the West, the United States, just go over the Western chart, and it's a lot deeper. I say get into the Eastern chart as well. Some call it the Chinese astrology that goes into the animal signs, by the way. And I also heard allegedly the Illuminati, the powers that be that arrange marriages and stuff in Hollywood, they go by the Eastern chart, the animal signs. Another thing, when babies are born, by the way, when they take your blood, imagine they have your chart and they have your blood type. So and they can match up and do certain things when they have your records, and especially if you're still public and they're using your SSC, and all that can track back to, without going into, see, that's a whole nother discussion. But I gotta get ready to roll, so I'm gonna run through these comments. Chief Vegas says it's considered as an experimental jab, so once you sign your signature, it takes the liability off of them. Folks need to do their own research. Yes, I agree with that. Chi, thank you. Secret Balance thought I started with medical astrology, and I have been creating a healing chart based on the Tegema Mundi, which is the birth chart on the universe. Wow, very interesting. Powerful stuff. Says we used to do synastry chart analysis to find our mate and birth our children to have a harmonious home. Wow. And I can see that's powerful. See, the powers that be, they don't want stuff like that. The ruling class, where they live perfectly normal lives, but they want to try to destroy everyone else's life. It's really messed up. By the way, that's why I mentioned they put obstacles and roadblocks in front of us, similar to the Hunger Games. Remember, they put those obstacles in their way and things. Secret Balance says, yes, I have been studying it for 12 years. Mayan, Incan, Western, Eastar, and Sidereal. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. I love stuff like that. Unfortunately, guys, I gotta go. I'm running out of time. That's my time. But the topic of the video, once again, I just wanted to come out, give my thoughts, my feedback, why I stand with Kyrie, Ice Cube, the many others that have spoken out there, the protesters, all the activists out there. I appreciate you from all sides. Keep the fight. Keep going. First aid, first responders out there. I see you from across the country. Chicago, New Jersey, New York, Florida, Texas, Michigan, everywhere, Ohio, private citizens, people involved in the fight. I love you. Appreciate you all protesting. I love to see that. Continue to fight. Real legends never die. They live in our hearts forever. Guys out there, stay woke. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Minds.com at Dorsey's Resource. And until next time, may the force be with you. Peace. I'm out.